Welcome to JubilAge with your host, Carol Chiarito. Carol, very nice to be with you again. You look great. How you
Hey,
been?
Bill. Good to see you again as well. I've been good.
I'm excited about today's episode because I've had a little preview of what's to come, but why don't you lay it out for us? What have you got on the table for us today?
So, I am starting out our podcast with our whole season of what is it that we need to know? What is going on out there in the financial worlds of our seniors, and how is it affecting them? And how is it affecting their family? And my original intent was to have a whole panel on here, but there's only so many people that can fit on the studio, I guess. So I invited a friend of mine, Mike Stith. He and I chatted about this very conversation, and he had such a wonderful story. I invited him to be our guest today.
Wonderful. I can't wait to hear what Mike has to say.
Awesome. Hey, Mike.
Nice to be here, Carol and Bill.
Thanks for agreeing to join me on this JubilAge podcast. We've been friends for quite some time. I don't even know how long we've been friends. We've worked together in various business arrangements, all having to do with seniors, I might add. And one of the conversations that you and I had most recently was about you and your mother-in-law. Your mother-in-law sounds like a very fun woman, and you live in Arkansas. Is that correct?
That is correct. Near
Yeah.
Bull Shoals Lake. Yes.
Bull Shoals Lake. You retired there from Illinois a couple of years ago. How long has it been since you retired to Bull Shoals?
Well, I retired professionally, in 2009, but I retired to Bull Shoals 3 years ago. So we've been here 3 years.
And your mother-in-law lives nearby.
Nearby, about 20 minutes away.
Okay. So in our conversation that you and I had, it was about how she's a vibrant woman, but she's not getting out and doing things. And it was mostly because of money. Is that correct?
Yes, she watches her money very closely. I should mention her husband passed away in December of last year. So she's been on her own and experiencing a new life. Okay. All this time. And along with that new life came financial responsibilities. And, she admits that she tends to worry about money too much. But as she says, what else would I worry about if I didn't worry about money? So that's her story.
So does she have a financial advisor?
Yes, she does. There's been one for the family for almost 40 years between her and her, so he's been around for a long time, done very well by him.
The same guy for 40 years.
Wow. I guess the same family, I think, as the guy's father started the business out. But it's a good, close relationship.
So don't you think it's kind of odd that she worries about her money? Don't you think that worry should be on the financial advisor's mind, not necessarily hers?
Carol, I couldn't agree with you more. And since you and I talked about this recently, I was quite surprised. And then when I talked to her this week, I was even more surprised that they have done no planning for the future. That, her money, she knows, she trusts him, and her money's doing well. And if she needs money, she calls him and gets it. But as of per her, they've never had a conversation about long-term care or long-term financial planning.
Now, tell me about your conversation that you had with her earlier this week and in the past about her finances, because that's how this whole conversation got started with you and I.
I've learned a lot through the years. I've been sort of a companion caregiver to several people over the last decade, and it's been fairly consistent. There's just seems to be a void and a lack of communication about planning for the future, especially for, I don't know, just vacations and things like that, and fun projects and things that, that could give her a more meaningful existence. So, I was just quite surprised, and she was thrilled to have the conversation. Is okay. It was good to think about that. It's just something that she hasn't done yet. She grew up in a poor background. They're a hardworking family, and it's happened to do very well over the years. And now that she's alone and at 85 years old, she's just reinventing herself. So these are new conversations to her, and I saw a new enthusiasm coming from her.
And I guess the one thing that's really important here is her age. We didn't say how old she is.
Yes.
How old is she?
So she is 85. And she's
85.
almost 86 years old.
Yeah. And so, in your opinion, Mike, what do you feel would make her less worrisome about her money? What would it be that it would be helpful for her to know so that she would worry less? If her
Right.
advisor were to wave your magic wand kind of thing, and if you could get her advisor to tell her some different things, what would those things be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did ask her what her number one concern was, and she's more concerned about will her money be there. I mean, I think the discussions about the economy are now coming out, and she's aware enough to know she's worried about the economy itself, not so much that, about her advisor. But I think what would make her feel good, though, if we sat down with her advisor and we discussed things that are safe and secure that could help, make her feel free to spend money on areas that would, be inspiring to her and fund for her. I think if we had the conversation, I think that would be a good start.
Mm-hmm.
And include her family as well.
Oh, very good point. Because right now, who sits with her when she does meet with her advisor? Anyone?
No, I've actually sat with her once with him. Okay. She's only seen him once in the last year. I think she went on her own, and as you and I have discussed, she's had some serious hearing issues. So I highly advise her from now on to have someone go with her, and she would prefer me to go with her, but if the family needs to work it out, so I'm not her power of attorney, and I'll be happy, but I go with her to other doctor's appointments to be her ears. That's it. And so, yeah, someone needs to go with her, and I'm happy to be her ears.
Right. So this whole idea of including the family in the conversation is big. And I think there's two sides to that. Some seniors don't really want the family to be involved in those conversations. Or maybe they don't understand why it's important to have the family involved, because it makes your life as a caregiver, because you are a caregiver one way or the other. There's just no other way to look at it. And so are the rest of the family members. Anyone who helps her in her life at 85, all the way down the rest of this, as Bill calls it, leveling up at every birthday. This is a really big thing. And so the two sides of that, again, are the senior isn't really quite sure they want to share what all they have with that's all top secret, right? It's
It is so true.
The silent generation. And I have to say, Bill and I were talking a little bit before the show started. As boomers, are we even sharing that with our kids, right? Multiple. Are you, Mike?
No.
Yeah.
I know, and her daughter was with us, talking to us yesterday, and she was the first to chime in and says, I don't share with my kids either. So
Right.
I think it's a generation. It's just a societal thing.
For whatever it is, but the need is very, very clear, right? It's kind of like the need to exercise.
Yeah.
We know we should, but we don't, kind of thing.
True.
Well, maybe
True.
you guys do, but
No.
This one doesn't. Yeah. So, and I think that there's really no big reason as to why we don't share, but I think I don't even know what the magic age is. So there's got to be some point where that mindset needs to begin to turn. So going back to your mother-in-law, would she be open to family conversations, or as I call it, the kitchen table talk, about all of these different things, the finances, with her financial advisor? And would the financial advisor be open to those family talks?
I honestly, since I think I know all the people involved, I think it might be slow to start, but I think it would go very well. I think there are no hidden issues or hidden agendas, and I think they would be open to it. And I could tell by talking to Laura yesterday. I mean, I think she's open to it, but it's still a little apprehension just, yeah. But with the right scenario, the right environment, I think it could be done.
So I'm going to plant this idea of the right scenario right now, because you just led me into the perfect opportunity for me to talk about what we do at JubilAge, and exactly it is the exact purpose for this conversation. The financial advisor, if the financial advisor would say to your mother-in-law and to the family, I would like for all of you to come in here and be a part of this conversation, everyone's mind would change. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
Exactly. So now it's not, the onus is not on mom to say, hey, let's come and do this, because, right, she's part of that silent generation. She's not ready to share. But if it was led by the financial advisor saying, hey, you're not hearing as well as you used to be. You're 85 years old. There's a lot of things that we need to discuss for what happens if you need long-term care, all those things that are worrisome. And and that financial advisor could say to her, what are you worried about most? Let's address those things. Do you see how that would shift the whole entire situation that we're talking about now?
I certainly do. And I agree. And coming from that angle, absolutely. Instead of it coming from one of her children, the financial advisor his role would change. And I think
Exactly.
that would work very well.
So when we, I think one of the things that I call them Carolisms when I do my advisor meetings with my clients, I tell my clients everything in life is a bucket of money. All of your money is belongs in one bucket or another, and in most circumstances, there are three buckets of money. Your retirement bucket, which is, it could be a pension, it could be Social Security, it could be your IRA, your 401k, whatever it is, those things all fill up that retirement bucket, and that money is only to be used for retirement. You don't snag money from your 401k if it's designed to be for your retirement money. You don't snag money from there to go to Italy. The second bucket, the middle bucket, is your emergency bucket. This is where, you have a blowout with your tires, or your hot water heater goes out, or there's a hurricane because you live in Florida, whatever it is. That's your
Yes.
emergency bucket. And that's typically easy to get to money. Some people need to have 50,000 in that bucket because that makes them feel secure. Some people have, 5,000, whatever it is, that's each person's security level. And the third bucket, and this is the bucket that I feel is most important to the mentality of our aging people, is the fun bucket. This is the bucket where you have full permission to spend this on anything and everything that you want to do. You want to go on a cruise? Here's your fun bucket money. And so as an advisor, I'm trying to fill those buckets up for people every single year. You tell me what you want to do, and let's figure out how we're going to keep each one of those buckets full. And it can be multiple, if you have 6 CDs, I would say to you, tell me which bucket these 6 CDs fit in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now it becomes you orchestrating to me what you're thinking, because sometimes we don't look at things that way. My mother-in-law, this is a mother-in-law show, I think,
It
right?
must be.
My mother-in-law is also very quiet about what her finances are. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. Spend all your money on you. I don't care. Doesn't matter to us. But she would have accounts all over town in every bank, right? There's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we've got this over here. We've got this over here. And I talk to a lot of my clients that do that as well. They think their money is safer if you only put $10,000 in each bank or something. I don't know. And so when I ask people, we make a list of all their accounts and we say, put right down to the side of this which bucket you feel that would go in. Now you begin to sort your money, and you're thinking about this, aren't you, Mike? You're thinking about
Oh,
your own buckets.
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole different way of um, looking at things and thinking about things.
hmm
And so if you were to maybe try this exercise with your mother-in-law, and for those of you listening, think about it on your own personal level. What are your buckets? Because if you don't allow yourself a fun bucket, you're putting everything into one bucket, and typically everyone puts everything into that one bucket called retirement. Once
hmm
you retire, and you said it, she's worried it's if her money is going to last. Well, her financial advisor should have access to all kinds of different things with guaranteed income products or whatever it would be. So those things that you really want to last, those retirement structured funds, those should be in something that is set up to last no matter what
hmm
happens to the market. The emergency fund, typically money markets, CDs, whatever. The fund money can ebb and flow. You know what? We may not have enough money to go on a Carnival cruise. We may have to just go to Branson. Whatever. It might even cost the
That
same
works.
for all I know, right? But do you
That's
see,
close.
what do you think if we had that conversation with your mother-in-law? What do you think how would she accept that or begin to think about it?
I think she would be open for the conversation, and it'd be a new level of conversation for her. So, it might, take a little bit for her to be extremely comfortable, but I think she would be open to the conversation. I know, at least compared to the conversations that her and I have had in the past, I think she'd be open for it.
What would be your thought in this is what keeps me up at night. How could I reach all of those financial advisors who are probably really awesome advisors? I mean, being in business for 40 years, you can't be a schlep.
No, certainly not. He's not. Yeah.
So my mission is to reach advisors just like your mother-in-laws, and you take that times a million in, in America, maybe even more. How can we reach them? Or, how can we let them know that really it's their job to make the first move? Just like we had the conversation just a few minutes ago,
hmm
what if the advisor began that conversation to bring the family around?
It's a terrific idea for me, and it brings a lot of value to the advisor. It gives them another tool for their kit. It gives them another source of value they offer their customers that's nothing but positive. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine an advisor saying they didn't want to have that conversation. It could happen, but it's just another, tool for them.
And I think, do you have your own advisor as well who's different than hers?
Yes.
So if her advisor doesn't begin to have those conversations, or maybe the market goes down and she does,
hmm
lose. I mean, when you're 85, you really can't afford to
No.
lose a whole lot in a market crash, because God knows how long it would take you to get back up to where you were, let alone above that. So we've
Right.
got to keep people on a constant increase. But I always say, when I'm talking to advisors, is you're running the risk of losing your clients. Because if you have an advisor who might be having those conversations with you, you might be more apt, if you had the ability, to say, "Hey mom, I want you to talk to my advisor. He's got a little bit better ideas, and I think he can help us." I mean, if I were licensed in Arkansas, I could swoop in right now, and I feel
Right.
I could take all of the money that she has had with this guy for 40 years and tell her what I would do with her. And I really think that she would be my client tomorrow,
hmm
because it's a different way of looking at things.
It is definitely a different way to look at things. You have with that amount of time and history with his family, it might be a little bit more of a challenge there, but I see what you're saying. I see I bet you'll find plenty of people that are ready to make a change, to be more involved and to
Yeah.
get more energy from their financial experience. So
Right.
yeah, you would.
So I think it's not about, we're not here to harp about how bad financial advisors are, but we're
No.
here to help, and we're here to again, my motto, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yes.
So we're here to actually begin to think about, what could we do different? We've got a 30-year-old client and we've got an 85-year-old client.
Mm-hmm.
How different should those conversations be? And then we've
Oh
got a
yeah.
65-year-old client, right? that's
Mm-hmm.
that's us, right? We're in that
Yeah.
middle. And so there's a point where we're going to begin to change our conversations and put on a different hat, and the answer of, oh, everything's going to be okay in your portfolio, you know s- ride the storm, stay where you are,
Right.
that's got to, we're in it for the long haul. you know
Mm-hmm.
how many times have you heard that from your advisor?
Oh yeah, for
So
sure. We got to
again, if
think
you
of long
think
term.
about your three buckets, there might be one bucket that's in there for the long haul. The others are maybe not so much.
As I'm learning this, what you're saying, the buckets are not going to change for the most part. The buckets, regardless of what the age group is. So the foundation is there
You're right.
and based on the buckets.
The buckets may change in the amounts that are how full they are,
Of course, that's
right?
no doubt that will definitely change. Yes.
But even at that, what some of my clients used to put their Christmas gift money in their fun bucket because they loved giving gifts at Christmas and they couldn't travel as much anymore. So that
Mm-hmm.
was part of what we used in their fun bucket, because that gave them the greatest joy to give their grandkids and great grandkids, whatever it was. Sometimes it was just money, right? That's what we do, write checks, as
It is
that's
these
the other
days.
thing that we boomers do. That, we write checks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But so I feel like there's three sides to this. There's the financial advisor,
Mm-hmm.
there's the senior, and there's the family. And all three of those play a very strategic role at any level. I have a 24-year-old son. My youngest son is 24.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you, I'm not nosy, but okay, I'm nosy. But,
Sure.
in understanding where he's going, and I don't want him to make the same mistakes that maybe I made when I was 24. Think back to when you were 24.
Oh,
What could you do differently? And
right.
if you talk to your mother-in-law, of which would be a whole nother podcast. I would love to find out, someone who's in their late 70s or 80s, what do you think you did wrong in your financial lives that you would like to redo if you could? And then
Mm-hmm.
give all that information to the younger people and go, look, this is not your grandma's retirement plan. We talked about that in another conversation I had with someone yesterday of, you know, our grandparents, probably, they were more on the platform of a job that had a pension, and you could retire with a pension, and you didn't really have to worry about how much you're putting into your 401k, if they even had a 401k. And
Right.
so now people have gotten to the point where Social Security, they think Social Security is their pension, which it was never designed to be a pension. It was only designed to keep people out of poverty. And so that's why the whole idea of security, and then listening to the news, that's got to put a little bit of worry into even your mother-in-law's mind, because that's what she's worried about, right? Is what's going to happen to the market. And so she's probably listening to somebody at, whatever, pick your channel. They're all saying the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Very much so. Yeah.
So after our conversation today, Mike, what do you think you're going to do differently, or maybe add to your conversations with your mother-in-law?
That's a good question. you know, I would be happy to go with her to talk to her planner for sure. And if he's open to family members being there, have more of a relaxing conversation to open up the dialogue. I think that would be a good step. And I think she would be very open to that. And I think he would be too, since I do know him, you
Good.
know,
Good.
so, and discuss the concept for sure. And I'm sure he has some good ideas. He's a very talented man. Yeah.
Make sure you give him the information about our podcast.
I will do that. I will do that. I'm sure she's waiting to see it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, as we begin to close down our podcast today, thanks a lot for sharing all of this information. I know it's, in some ways personal, but it's so generic because this is exactly what's happening across America and probably even in other countries everywhere. And so just getting the word out, and this is what our podcast is all about as we move forward in the JubilAge world of sharing these stories and bringing on other advisors to talk about what's really needed and what's really going on so that people can start making great decisions.
Thank you. That's been my pleasure, Carol.
Guys, before we go, this is Bill. I just want to jump in for 1 second because there's a question in my mind that has to do with us. And that is, Carol or Mike, I'd be interested to know how we change our attitudes, because I don't share stuff with my kids that I should share. And so, is there a way that we, I don't know that we've got an answer, but it's like, it seems to me we've got to at least ask the question and start thinking about answering that question. I mean, how do we change? What is it we can do as a fellow boomer that we can change our attitude in terms of, just talking about money with the family? I don't know an answer to that one. So I'm throwing that bend in here before you close out, Carol, to see if anybody's got any thoughts, because I don't have an answer.
Bill, whenever you ask me if I have a thought on anything, the answer is always going to be yes.
Of course it is. I depend on that. Yes.
So you start small. You start somewhere. And maybe you don't show up and throw up, as I call it. You don't just show up and give them all of your information about every account and your whole net worth and the whole thing. But you start the conversation small. And you can just say, look, maybe start with maybe your will or your trust, whatever you have, and just say, look, we did a trust, or we did a will, and this is how it works. And if one of your kids is going to be set to be the executor, you can say, Billy, this is why we chose you. And, we want you guys to work about this, but start small and then continue to have conversations that build up to more and more and more. So don't eat the pizza whole, just eat it one slice at a time. Because when you first start the conversation, the kids are like, oh my God, why are we having this conversation? Right? But then if you start just a little bit at a time, they start to realize, oh my gosh, that's true. Because one of the things that I learned in working with seniors is that we as children, when we look at our parents, we don't see them at 85 or 65. We see our parents as who they were when we were living at home. We think that, especially my brothers and men, maybe it's all men, I don't know, think that their moms should cook them the same dinners that, the lasagna and the fried chicken and the pies and all the things, right? We don't
nothing wrong with that.
The bingo. So we don't see the aging process happening because we're not around our parents every day. But and until something becomes huge, like we go for Christmas and now, mom can't remember that she told us that same story 6 times already. That's when we go, oh my gosh. So you've got to have those conversations before you start repeating those stories 6 times. So your kids begin to feel and see your aging process, but also your kids are seeing that you are preparing. yourself and them.
Mm.
And that is something that is teaching them how to prepare their own children down the road. Because guess what? Our parents didn't do it. So guess what? We're not doing it.
No.
So we've got to break that mold. We've got to start small. And I think starting with a will or a trust, whatever it is that you have, is a great place. Because first of all, we all need that, a will or a trust. If you don't have one, you can go get one. And that's a great place to start the conversation.
Great. Thank
Does
you.
that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, it does. It's a lot like a book that's been on my mind lately, Atomic Habits. You don't start with the whole pizza. You start with a couple of bites of the pizza, and you
Right.
move slowly. Yeah, it makes great sense. Thanks, Carol.
Yeah. And I also think that relating back to, so for me, when I can talk to my kids, I can relate back to what happened with me and their grandmother. And I can say, you know what? I had to make this all up because I really didn't know. And so I want it to be different for you guys and me, or us, for me and my husband. Great question,
Great.
Bill.
Thanks. Good answer. Good
Thank
answer.
you. All right, Mike, hey, thanks again for being on the show. Bill, thanks for your input. So, from JubilAge, until next time, keep living, keep learning, keep celebrating every moment. Be jubilant.
Thank you for tuning in to JubilAge, where we celebrate the joy of aging and explore the financial wisdom to thrive in every stage of life. We hope you found today's conversation insightful, whether you're a financial advisor looking to better serve your senior clients or someone embracing the journey of aging. Remember, aging is a privilege, and with the right knowledge and perspective, it can be a vibrant, fulfilling experience. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share JubilAge with others who could benefit from our discussions. Until next time, keep living, keep learning, and keep celebrating every moment. Stay jubilant.